Tuesday morning doesn't sound dramatic, does it? It sounds ordinary, like alarms, cold coffee, unread messages, excuses lined up neatly like they always are. That's why it works. Deadlines don't usually arrive with thunder. They arrive quietly, while you're still convincing yourself there's time. You've been telling that story for a while now. Tomorrow, next week, one more chance. Funny how time keeps moving even when you don't. Everyone loves potential. Potential is flattering. It lets you feel special without asking you to prove anything. But Tuesday morning doesn't care about potential. It doesn't care what you meant to do, what you almost did, or what you would have done if things were different. It only cares about what shows up when the clock stops negotiating. That's the part people avoid thinking about, because once there's a deadline, there's nowhere left to hide. You see, pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. When time runs out, excuses lose their charm. Fear loses its poetry. All the noise in your head gets very quiet, and what's left is simple. Did you move or did you stall? Did you act or did you rehearse acting? Tuesday morning has a way of exposing how much of your life has been preparation for a moment you keep postponing. What makes deadlines uncomfortable is that they're honest. They don't argue. They don't explain themselves. They don't care how overwhelmed you felt or how unfair the timing seems. They just arrive and wait. And in that waiting, they hold up a mirror, not to who you say you are, but to who you've been practicing being every day you chose comfort over courage. You've had warnings before, quiet ones, late nights where you knew something needed to change, mornings where you felt that pressure in your chest and pushed it aside because distraction was easier. You called it patience. You called it strategy. Sometimes you even called it faith. But deep down, you knew it was delay wearing a smarter outfit. Tuesday morning strips all that away. No symbolism, no metaphors. Just a line in the sand drawn by time itself. Step forward or stay exactly where you are. And staying still is a choice no matter how politely you dress it up. The world doesn't pause because you're unsure. Opportunities don't reschedule themselves because you're afraid of failing publicly. The funny thing is, you don't actually need more time. You need fewer lies. Lies about being ready someday. Lies about conditions needing to be perfect. Lies about motivation magically appearing. Deadlines don't motivate you. They expose whether you were ever serious to begin with. Tuesday morning isn't threatening you, it's clarifying you. It's asking one simple question without raising its voice. Are you finally going to do the thing you keep talking about? Or are you going to protect the version of yourself that never risks being wrong? Because once that morning comes, whatever you choose will stop being a thought and start being a pattern. Ordinary deadline carry the most power because they sneak up on you while you're busy thinking everything is under control. They don't arrive with fanfare or dramatic music. They don't knock on your door with warnings and reminders. They just exist quietly. A line drawn in time that refuses to move for anyone's convenience. Most people ignore deadlines until they're shouting, until panic sets in, until the weight of inevitability crashes down. But the quiet ones, the seemingly insignificant ones, are the real tests. Tuesday morning is one of those. It's just a day, yet it holds more truth about your discipline, courage, and honesty than any motivational speech ever could. At first, a deadline like that seems trivial. Tuesday morning, that's just a day in the week. There's time, right? You've been thinking this way your whole life. You've convinced yourself that tomorrow always exists, that opportunity has flexibility, that your best work doesn't need urgency because quality will speak for itself eventually. That's the lie ordinary deadlines expose. The moment you recognize that time doesn't negotiate, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The quiet pressure becomes impossible to ignore. Deadlines are simple, but humans are complex. We complicate everything because complexity masks fear. We layer excuses over procrastination. We decorate inaction with planning. We call waiting patience. We call hesitation wisdom, and deadlines, they ignore all of it. They strip away your stories and leave only the raw truth. Did you move? Or did you stall? Were you honest with yourself? Or were you busy rehearsing courage for later? Tuesday morning doesn't care about your rehearsals. It cares about results. It cares about whether your actions match your intentions. There's also a psychological trick in ordinary deadlines that people fail to notice. Because they don't intimidate immediately, you underestimate their influence. You tell yourself that the alarm clock will still ring, that Monday evening will give you more energy, that circumstances will somehow align to make everything easier. You think you have time to prepare, polish, adjust, and in that miscalculation, you waste the hours that would have made the deadline manageable. Ordinary deadlines are sneaky. That way they test patience, consistency, and honesty all at once. Deadlines reveal character, not in the moments you plan or imagine, but in the moments you actually act. Tuesday morning doesn't wait for your mood, your inspiration, your confidence. It simply exists. It holds space, empty and impartial, for whatever you bring to it. And if you bring nothing, it doesn't yell, it doesn't cry, it doesn't explain itself. It simply reflects back the truth of your inaction. Ordinary deadlines are mirrors of your own choices, and they don't offer comfort, apology, or forgiveness. Most people fear the visible deadline, the dramatic one that forces confrontation. But ordinary deadlines, like Tuesday morning, are more dangerous because they lull you into complacency. They don't demand heroism. They don't demand panic. They simply exist quietly, testing how much of your effort is real, how much of your commitment is performative, how much of your intention is an illusion. Ordinary deadlines force introspection whether you like it or not. They are impartial observers of your patterns, and patterns never lie. The brilliance of an ordinary deadline is that it exposes habit. It exposes whether preparation was genuine or just imagined. It exposes whether your work ethic exists only in comfortable conditions or survives under the pressure of routine accountability. Tuesday morning asks questions you've been avoiding. Do you respect yourself enough to meet your own standards? Do you value your goals enough to honor your own time? Do you have the courage to face a simple date without excuses, without negotiation, without theatrical explanation? Deadlines strip you of illusion. They make the internal debate external. All the stories you've been telling yourself about, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do better next week, I just need more time, they vanish. Ordinary deadlines are not polite. They are impartial. They don't reward optimism. They don't respond to charm. They don't care about effort that isn't visible. The moment arrives, and only your actions matter. That's why ordinary deadlines carry more weight than crises, more power than emergencies, more truth than motivational speeches. They expose everything you've been hiding from yourself, all the little compromises, all the small lies, all the postponements disguised as patience. And here's the trick most people miss. Ordinary deadlines are liberating. They cut through excuses, strip away illusions, and force you to confront reality as it is. They push you to act decisively, to prioritize ruthlessly, to engage honestly. The power of Tuesday morning isn't in its severity, it's in its clarity. It doesn't overwhelm you with theatrics. Simply gives you a line and waits to see if you step across it or not. And that's a truth you can't escape, no matter how creative your justifications, no matter how noble your intentions, no matter how quietly you wish it away. Potential dies when action is delayed. But nobody warns you about how quietly it fades. Potential feels infinite when it's just a thought. It's seductive because it doesn't demand risk. It allows daydreams to thrive while the real world remains untouched. You tell yourself you're preparing, studying, planning, waiting for the perfect moment. You tell yourself that tomorrow, when conditions are right, you'll finally step into what you were meant to do. That story is comforting, but it's a lie. Potential doesn't wait, and the longer you postpone, the more it withers unnoticed. You confuse intention with impact. Wanting something, imagining success, rehearsing action in your mind, it all feels productive. It keeps you busy while the clock moves on. And that's exactly what potential wants you to believe. That thought equals movement. That desire equals progress. That imagining courage is the same as showing it. It's not. The moment you postpone action, potential begins its quiet decay. Every excuse, every delay, every "I'll start tomorrow" chips away at what could have been, leaving only possibility without substance. The danger is how invisible this death is. You can't see potential fading until it's almost gone. There are no alarms, no announcements, no messages telling you that your future is slipping through inaction. One day you wake up and realize the opportunities you imagined are no longer possible. The scenarios you rehearsed in your mind require action that never happened, and the truth hits not as a revelation, but as a suffocating realization. Your potential only existed when you acted on it. Humans are wired to believe in tomorrow because tomorrow is comforting. It's abstract, untouchable, forgiving. It lets you hide from consequences. And while you're hiding, life continues. Deadlines don't forgive, and neither does reality. The longer you wait, the less leverage you have. Circumstances change, people move on, timing shifts. The world doesn't pause for your hesitation. And potential? It evaporates quietly while you tell yourself you're still preparing, still thinking, still imagining. Fear is the fuel of delay. Fear convinces you that preparation is more important than execution, that comfort is preferable to exposure, that perfection is a prerequisite for action. But fear disguises itself well. It calls procrastination prudence, hesitation strategy, inaction patience. And while you're admiring your clever rationalizations, potential is decaying. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't dramatize its exit. It just leaves, leaving you standing in the same place, wondering why the world is moving without you. Potential demands courage, not admiration. It doesn't respond to hope, inspiration, or intention alone. You can feel excited about an idea, visualize your success, even plan meticulously, and still accomplish nothing if action doesn't follow. Potential is alive only in movement. It's tangible only in execution. Without action, it becomes a ghost haunting the space between what you imagined, what you did, showing you what could have been while reflecting nothing of what is. Delays compound. One postponed decision leads to another. One hesitation leads to habitual hesitation. Action becomes a mountain that grows taller the longer you avoid it. And the irony is that the mountain looks smaller in your imagination than it does in reality. You keep rehearsing courage in your mind, thinking the summit will be easier tomorrow, while each delay steepens the climb and narrows your margin for success. Potential is unforgiving in its arithmetic. Time wasted cannot be reclaimed, and opportunity is finite. There's also the trap of comparing yourself to others. You see people who acted while you waited. They move, they achieve, they grow, and you feel the sting of jealousy disguised as impatience. But that sting isn't just envy. It's a reflection of the time you allowed to slip through your hands. Every second spent waiting is a second someone else is using to convert their potential into reality. And watching them succeed doesn't motivate you. It reminds you that your inaction is a choice. The cost of delay is invisible until it becomes concrete. It's not a dramatic moment of failure. It's the slow, steady disappearance of what you might have been. Your skills, opportunities, influence, connections, they all require action to flourish. Potential alone can't cultivate them. Ideas without execution remain dreams. Plans without motion remain paper. And the longer you wait, the further the world moves from the version of you that could have acted in time. Action is the lifeline of potential. It's the bridge between thought and reality, between possibility and impact. Every small decision, every step forward, every choice to engage rather than hesitate sustains potential. But hesitation is seductive because it feels safe. It offers comfort while the clock ticks, offering the illusion of progress while the world is moving without you. And eventually, the stark truth becomes undeniable. Potential only lives when it's used, and every delay is a quiet death of what could have been. Time exposes excuses without emotion, and that's what makes it terrifying. Time doesn't negotiate, it doesn't plead, it doesn't care about your justifications, your reasoning, or your charm. It simply moves forward while you explain away inaction. You can invent reasons, rationalize delays, create elaborate narratives to comfort yourself. But time doesn't pause to listen. It ticks, steady, impartial, indifferent. And every tick is a reminder that your excuses are invisible to the world and irrelevant to progress. Excuses feel productive. You convince yourself that reasoning counts as effort, that analysis equals preparation, that talking about plans is the same as executing them. The mind loves excuses because they offer control without risk. They give a sense of movement without requiring action. You can rehearse courage endlessly, but time only recognizes what actually happens. And that's where excuses collide with reality, in the space where nothing changes despite all your explanations. Time doesn't reward intention. It doesn't care about how much you wanted to act, how much you planned, or how clever your justifications are. It only cares about outcomes produced in the present moment. Every excuse that delays action diminishes opportunity, and that loss is silent. You don't feel it immediately because excuses cushion the impact, but eventually time's impartiality becomes undeniable. The moment arrives when no rationale can alter the fact that nothing was done. There's a subtle cruelty to excuses because they masquerade as wisdom. I'll wait for the right moment. I need to prepare more. I'm not ready yet. They sound reasonable, even strategic. They make you feel responsible, thoughtful, deliberate. But in reality, they are procrastination dressed in rhetoric, comforting you while the deadline tightens, while opportunities slip through fingers that were too busy justifying hesitation. Time sees through the polish of reasoning, and that's what makes it relentless. Excuses also distort perception of effort. You can feel busy, productive even, while making no real progress. Planning, organizing, thinking, imagining, they all count for something internal, but externally, they are invisible to the forces that determine results. Time doesn't reward narrative skill, it rewards action. You can tell the story of how hard you tried, but the story doesn't alter outcomes. And as time passes, the gap between what you claim and what you achieve grows, making it harder to close. One of the cruelest aspects is that excuses are contagious. They spread internally, convincing you that delay is acceptable, and externally, as people around you may adopt the same rationale, normalizing inaction. Society encourages reasoning for postponement, glorifies preparation without execution, and romanticizes patience. But the clock doesn't adapt. It doesn't conform to perception. Time is a silent, impartial witness to your choices, and it doesn't reward stories, only consequences. Time exposes excuses not dramatically, but gradually, with accumulated precision. Each postponed task, each deferred responsibility, Each moment of hesitation builds upon the last. Eventually, you can measure the distance between intention and action, and it becomes stark. The pattern of delay becomes undeniable. That's when realization hits. The world moved forward while you were still rehearsing your speech, perfecting your plan, waiting for conditions that never materialized. Excuses didn't stop the world. They only delayed your participation in it. Excuses also mask fear, and that's their deceptive brilliance. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort. They all hide behind reasoning and planning. You justify avoidance as prudence, hesitation as caution, and inaction as reflection. But the truth is, fear isn't diminished by narrative. It's only exposed by movement. Every delayed action is an unspoken victory for fear, and time doesn't forgive it. The opportunity lost cannot be negotiated back into existence. Time's impartiality also reveals truth about priorities. Excuses often indicate what we care about less than we admit. If something is important, you act despite discomfort. If something is essential, you find a way to engage regardless of risk. Excuses are evidence that something isn't being treated with the urgency or respect it deserves. Time, indifferent and consistent, exposes this mismatch between claimed value and actual behavior with brutal clarity. Eventually, you notice a pattern. The things you postpone are often the ones that matter most. The small, convenient tasks get done without hesitation, but the big, challenging, essential work waits behind walls of excuses. Time doesn't care about the narrative complexity, it only measures execution. And every tick of the clock silently announces what the excuses cannot. That delay is choice, and choice has consequences. Time exposes excuses without emotion because it is not human. It doesn't forgive, it doesn't justify, it doesn't console. It simply marches forward, relentless, impartial, indifferent. It reflects the truth of your actions or lack thereof and waits for the moment you can no longer hide behind reasoning, rhetoric, or delay. When that moment comes, every excuse collapses under the weight of reality, leaving only the stark reflection of what actually exists versus what you imagine. Delay is a choice disguised as patience, and that disguise is what keeps most people trapped. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, for clarity, for preparation to be complete. You tell yourself that careful planning is wisdom, that hesitation is prudence, that postponement is strategic. And while you wrap in action in these comforting words, the world continues indifferent to your internal narrative. Time doesn't pause for preparation, and opportunity doesn't wait for consent. Every moment you choose to delay, the margin for impact shrinks quietly, imperceptibly, until one day you wake up and realize the chance has slipped away. Delay feels safe. It cushions you from failure, from exposure, from responsibility. There's a certain allure in staying behind the threshold, peeking out at possibility without stepping across the line. You imagine control, as if choosing when to act gives you power over outcomes. But that control is an illusion. Delay only gives the appearance of control while it robs you of momentum. Every postponed step allows inertia to set in, convincing you that standing still is equivalent to moving forward. And in that deception, courage becomes more distant and fear more familiar. People glorify patience because it sounds virtuous. They claim waiting is strength, deliberation is intelligence, and endurance is maturity. But patience is only noble when it has purpose. Waiting without reason is delay. Delay dressed as patience convinces you that you're noble, that you're disciplined, that you're acting strategically, when in reality you're merely avoiding discomfort. You've redefined inaction as virtue, and in that redefinition, every missed opportunity feels justified, every unmade move feels excusable, and every moment of hesitation feels deserved. Delay also magnifies anxiety while disguising it. You believe you're preparing for a future moment, but every postponed action creates an accumulation of pressure. The tasks you avoid don't disappear, they grow heavier, more urgent, and more unavoidable. And yet, while you feel this weight, you rationalize it. You make lists, set reminders, rehearse scenarios, and convince yourself that you are actively managing time, when in reality, you're merely rehearsing courage without applying it. Anxiety becomes the echo of postponed action, a subtle reminder of your choice to remain in the safe space of inaction. The trickiest part of delay is that it cultivates the illusions of progress. You can feel busy. You can plan, think, imagine, and strategize. You can convince yourself you're moving forward while producing nothing tangible. The mind loves to reward activity over achievement, and delay exploits that tendency brilliantly. While you're rehearsing action, the world moves forward with or without you, and the quiet realization that you've been lagging behind arrives suddenly, often when the consequences are irreversible, when the options are limited, when the margin for error has vanished. Delay is seductive because it masquerades as prudence, yet it exposes character more than action ever could. It shows what you fear, what you avoid, and what you value or fail to value. Choosing to delay reveals where courage is absent, where risk is unacceptable, and where comfort takes precedence over growth. Every postponed decision is a statement. The moment is not right. I am not ready. I prefer safety over progress. Time does not judge this choice. It simply moves, silently reflecting the consequences back to you with impartial precision. Delay also corrupts perception of opportunity. You start believing that the moment will return, that circumstances will realign, that preparation will eventually catch up with necessity. But time is relentless. Opportunities that appear convenient today may vanish tomorrow. The world does not synchronize with your hesitation. Every moment you wait, the probability of success diminishes, and the comfort of delay becomes a trap. The gap between potential and action grows, leaving you with the haunting realization that the future you were waiting for existed only in theory, not in practice. There is a false narrative that delay is safe because it avoids immediate risk. But risk avoided is rarely risk eliminated. Every postponed action carries hidden consequences, accumulating silently while your mind celebrates imagined prudence. Each delay increases the stakes, heightens uncertainty, and magnifies the eventual confrontation with reality. Courage deferred is courage diminished, and when action finally becomes unavoidable, the magnitude of challenge has grown, leaving you less prepared than you imagined, weaker than you believed. Delay teaches dependence on conditions instead of internal resolve. You tell yourself you need clarity, resources, alignment, permission, perfect timing. You chase these external validations, believing that when they arrive, action will be easy. But clarity, alignment, and resources are fleeting. They exist in moments, not guarantees. Relying on them for action is a recipe for perpetual postponement. The person who acts despite imperfect conditions is the one who converts potential into reality, while the one who waits becomes a witness to a world moving forward without them. Every choice to delay is also a choice about identity. You define yourself through inaction as much as you define yourself through movement. Choosing hesitation over engagement signals fear, avoidance, and reliance on circumstance rather than agency. It is a declaration, I am not yet ready to confront reality on my terms, so I will wait for reality to bend to me. Time does not bend. It is impartial, relentless, indifferent, and every tick reminds you that delay is always a decision, not a pause, and that decision has consequences that cannot be unmade. Fear hides behind preparation, and it does so with remarkable subtlety. cloaked in the language of prudence, strategy, and foresight. You tell yourself that waiting, planning, and rehearsing are necessary steps, essential for success, a mark of responsibility and discipline. And on the surface, it sounds reasonable. After all, preparation is important. But the truth is that fear uses preparation as camouflage, keeping you busy while it quietly prevents you from moving forward. You are performing the appearance of readiness while avoiding the reality of action. Preparation feels productive, and that is exactly why it is so seductive. You can measure it, you can quantify it, you can tick boxes on lists that give you the illusion of progress. You can rehearse conversations, plan scenarios, and gather information endlessly, all while doing nothing that actually advances your goals. It feels like doing something because you are doing something tangible. But the substance is hollow, the work is for show, and the clock continues to tick, indifferent to your efforts at self-deception. Fear dresses itself as rationality. I need more time, it whispers. I need more data. I need a better plan. I need to prepare until I am sure. The phrasing makes it sound intelligent, controlled, even responsible. And because it sounds responsible, you trust it. You let it dictate your schedule, your priorities, your actions. You allow it to stand between you and your ambitions under the guise of prudence. In reality, it is avoidance in disguise, dressed up as strategy, parading as wisdom. There is a strange comfort in preparation that masks the anxiety lurking underneath. You are busy, your mind engaged, your hands occupied, and yet your soul is standing still. Action would demand courage, exposure, and vulnerability. Action would put you in a position where success and failure are equally possible, and fear dislikes that kind of uncertainty. So it lures you into preparation instead, where the work is safe, predictable, and invisible to the consequences that actually matter. The brilliance of fear in this disguise is how easily it convinces you that delay is beneficial. Every additional step of preparation seems like mastery, a guarantee of future success, a shield against error. And so you accumulate readiness without risk. You build plans without implementation. You design strategies without execution. And all the while, fear smiles silently, knowing that the world doesn't wait, that opportunity does not linger, and that preparation, no matter how thorough, cannot substitute for action. Fear behind preparation also manipulates time. You stretch it out, imagining the perfect conditions, waiting for a confluence of circumstances that may never arrive. You measure readiness in hours, days, or weeks, believing that the moment of perfect clarity is coming, that the stage will align exactly with your expectation. And while you wait, the reality outside your mind continues unyielding and uncooperative. Time is impartial, indifferent, and unforgiving. It does not pause while you rehearse, and opportunities slip past silently, leaving only regret behind. Preparation, when manipulated by fear, becomes a prison rather than a tool. You become skilled at the ritual without confronting the challenge. You develop competence in rehearsal, but not in execution. You cultivate knowledge of scenarios without acquiring the courage to navigate them. And because preparation is tangible, measurable, and structured, it feels productive, even virtuous. Why? The action that would bring real results waits, dormant, buried beneath layers of careful planning. Fear behind preparation also distorts perception of risk. You inflate danger, exaggerate potential consequences, and imagine every scenario in which failure would be catastrophic. The mind spins webs of hypotheticals, creating a narrative that makes waiting seem reasonable, sensible, and essential. And the longer you allow these imagined scenarios to dictate behavior, the more entrenched you become in avoidance. Preparation becomes the mechanism of control, yet it controls nothing except your own ability to act. The insidious part is that preparation offers temporary satisfaction, small rewards that feel like progress. Each checklist item completed, each plan revised, each hypothetical accounted for, provides a sense of accomplishment, a brief dopamine hit that convinces you that you are moving forward. But it is hollow. The satisfaction is a mask for fear, a temporary anesthesia for the truth. You are standing in place while the world advances. Each tick of the clock exposes the distance growing between you and the life that requires action, not rehearsal. Eventually, the truth becomes unavoidable. You realize that preparation, no matter how thorough, is powerless without implementation. Fear has used your diligence against you, turning readiness into stagnation, knowledge into inaction, and strategy into delay. And at that moment, the silent weight of all the wasted opportunity presses down. Because fear has succeeded in its quiet manipulation. You thought you were ready, but really, you were afraid. And preparation was merely the mask it wore. Funny thing about people, they spend their whole lives chasing, running after things they think will fill the emptiness. Money, success, love, power, whatever they can get their hands on. Like a starving man at a feast, grabbing everything in sight, stuffing his pockets, stuffing his mouth, but somehow still hungry, always hungry. Because no matter how much they get, it's never enough. The more they have, the more they want. Let's talk about the chase, the endless, exhausting, thrilling chase. People wake up every day, stretch their arms, rub their tired eyes, and jump right back onto the hamster wheel, chasing, running, grasping for something. Money, love, power, validation. Oh, validation, now that's a funny little drug, isn't it? People will do the most absurd things for just a little taste of approval, a pat on the back, a nod of acceptance from people who wouldn't even notice if they disappeared tomorrow. But that's the game, right? The world dangles the prize and you run after it, believing, oh, truly believing, that when you finally catch it, all the empty spaces inside you will be filled. You know the feeling, that gnawing, aching little void inside your chest that whispers to you at night. You drown it in noise and distractions, in everything and anything that makes you forget, even for a second, that something is missing. Because if you stop chasing, if you stop moving, you might just have to sit with it. Stare at it. Admit that no matter how fast you run, the feeling never really goes away. And let's not forget how society plays along. The billboards, the movies, the commercials, they all tell you the same thing. Just one more thing, and you'll be happy. A new car, a better job, a bigger house, a prettier face. Just one more achievement, one more title, one more milestone, and you'll finally feel whole. But the joke's on you, because the second you get it, there's always something else. The finish line moves, the applause fades, and you're left standing there, clutching your prize, feeling emptier than ever. So what do? You chase again. Round and round it goes. The world keeps feeding you lies, and you keep swallowing them like candy, hoping that this time, it'll be different. But it never is. Oh, and the best part, the people who seem to have it all, the ones standing at the top of the world, flashing their perfect lives like trophies, they're just as lost as you are, maybe even more, because they got everything they were told would make them happy, and yet the emptiness never left. That's when the real panic sets in. That's when they start looking in the mirror and wondering if they were tricked, if they spent their whole life climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's when they start chasing distractions even harder, numbing the realization with substances, with more achievements, with anything that stops them from hearing that tiny voice in their head whispering, "Something's still missing, isn't it?" And what about the ones who don't have it all? The ones still stuck in the rat race, watching the lucky ones from below, thinking if I could just get there, I'd be happy. Oh, it's a funny little cycle, isn't it? The ones who have it aren't happy, and the ones who don't have it think they will be. It's all just a trick, a magic show, smoke and mirrors designed to keep you chasing shadows. But what happens when you stop? When you stop running, stop chasing, stop believing the lie that happiness is just one more achievement away? What happens when you stand still, let the noise fade, and finally face the truth? That nothing in this world, no amount of money, no level of success, no person, no possession will ever fill that void inside you. You see, the real joke is that people spend their whole lives searching for something that was never out there to begin with. They dig through piles of glittering distractions, hoping to find a diamond buried underneath, never realizing they were looking in the wrong place all along. But stopping is scary, isn't it? Because if you stop, you have to face yourself. You have to admit that maybe, just maybe, you've been running in the wrong direction this whole time. And nobody wants to admit they've been fooled. Nobody wants to admit they've wasted years chasing a dream that was never real. But that's the first step, the moment of clarity, the realization that if you want to stop feeling lost, you have to stop following the map the world gave you. Because that map, it only leads to more chasing, more emptiness, more illusions. And the void inside you, it isn't going anywhere until you finally start looking in the right place. People. They cling to it like a security blanket, gripping it with white-knuckled desperation as if letting go means the world will swallow them whole. They plan, they strategize, they obsess over every detail, convinced that if they just do everything right, everything will go according to plan. It's adorable, really. The illusion of control, the belief that they are the masters of their fate, the captains of their souls, the architects of their own reality. But life has a funny little way of reminding them just how powerless they truly are. One moment, everything is smooth sailing, and the next, chaos. One phone call, one wrong step, one unexpected turn, and suddenly their perfect little world is crumbling beneath their feet. And that's when the panic sets in. That's when the fear creeps in like a slow-moving shadow, whispering that everything is spiraling out of control. And what do? Oh, they scramble, they fight. They try to put the pieces back together, desperate to regain the sense of order they thought they had. They make new plans, form new strategies, set new expectations, believing that if they just try a little harder, if they just hold on a little tighter, they can wrestle control back from the hands of fate. But the tighter they grip, the more it slips through their fingers like sand in a clenched fist. And when they finally realize they're losing the battle, that's when the real madness begins. The overthinking, the sleepless nights, the endless what-ifs playing in a loop inside their heads, tormenting them with visions of everything that could go wrong. They spiral, they suffocate, they drown in their own desperation to hold on to something that was never theirs to begin with. Oh, but the real tragedy, the ones who refuse to see it, the ones who convince themselves they still have control even as their world burns around them. They tell themselves it's just a rough patch, just a minor setback, just a test of their resilience. They refuse to surrender, refuse to accept that maybe, just maybe, they were never in control to begin with. And so they keep fighting, keep struggling, keep exhausting themselves in a battle. Because the truth is, control is an illusion, a comforting lie people tell themselves to keep the fear at bay. But deep down, they all know it. They know how fragile their plans are, how easily everything can fall apart. They just don't want to admit it, because admitting it means accepting the unknown, and the unknown, oh, that terrifies them more than anything. But what if, just what if, they let go? What if they stopped trying to control every little thing, stopped resisting the currents of life, stopped living in fear of what they cannot predict? But that would require trust, wouldn't it? And trust is a dangerous thing. It means surrendering. It means stepping into the darkness without knowing what's on the other side. It means accepting that maybe, just maybe, they were never supposed to be in control at all. And that is the scariest thing of all. Because people don't like the idea of surrender. They think it means weakness. They think it means giving up. But what if it doesn't? What if letting go isn't about losing, but about gaining something greater? What if the very thing they've been resisting is the very thing that could set them free? Oh, but that's the joke, isn't it? People are so afraid of losing control that they don't realize they never had it in the first place. They spend their whole lives fighting for something that was never really there, only to end up exhausted, broken, and lost. And all the while, the answer was right in front of them, the truth staring them in the face, waiting for them to see it. But will they? Or will they keep running in circles, desperately clinging to an illusion that was never real? That's the real question, isn't it? People like to believe they know what's best for them. They walk around with their little lists, their little plans, their 5-year goals, and their vision boards, thinking they've got it all figured out. They map out their futures like architects of some grand destiny, convinced that if they just do A, B, and C, they'll get X, Y, and Z. It's cute, really. The confidence, the certainty, the belief that they have the slightest clue about what's actually coming next. And then, of course, life happens, plans shatter, expectations crumble, and suddenly they're left standing in the wreckage of everything they thought they wanted. The job falls through, the relationship collapses, the opportunity they were banking on slips through their fingers like smoke, and oh, how they panic. How they mourn the loss of their perfect little plans, as if the universe personally betrayed them. They shake their fists at the sky, demanding to know why things didn't go their way, why things had to change, why they weren't given exactly what they wanted, exactly when they wanted it. Oh, but the real joke? They don't even realize they were being set up for something better, something bigger, something they couldn't even begin to imagine. Because that's the thing about people. They think they know what they need, but they don't. Not really. They chase after what's familiar, what's safe, what makes sense to them in the moment. They cling to their comfort zones, terrified of uncertainty, terrified of anything that forces them into the unknown. And when the rug gets pulled out from under them, they see it as punishment instead of protection, as a curse instead of a blessing, as a failure instead of a redirection. They don't see what's happening behind the scenes. They don't see the doors that are about to open, the pieces that are being put into place, the opportunities that are waiting just around the corner. All they see is what they've lost, what was taken, what didn't go according to plan. They mourn the end of things that were never meant to last, completely blind to the fact that what's coming is so much greater than what they wanted to hold on to. But oh, the irony. If they had gotten what they wanted, if everything had gone according to their perfect little scripts, they would have missed out on something far better. They would have settled. They would have locked themselves into a life so much smaller than the one they were actually meant to have. But people don't like waiting. They don't like uncertainty. They don't like trusting in something they can't see. They want answers now. They want guarantees. They want to know exactly how things are going to work out before they're willing to take a step forward. And when they don't get that certainty, they spiral. They stress. They convince themselves that everything is falling apart, when in reality, everything is falling into place. Oh, and let's talk about the way they fight it. The way they beg for doors to reopen even as they're being slammed shut for a reason. The way they keep going back to situations that are clearly toxic, clearly not meant for them, just because they're afraid of stepping into the unknown. People would rather sit in the comfort of what's familiar, even if it's miserable, than take a leap into something better. They fear change more than they fear stagnation. And that's where they go wrong. Because sometimes the loss is the blessing. Sometimes the rejection is the protection. Sometimes the disappointment is just a disguise for something far greater that's waiting on the other side. But will they see it? Will they let go of their need for control long enough to realize that maybe? Or will they keep fighting, keep resisting, keep clinging to what's already slipping away, until they're left with nothing but regret? Ah, now that's the real question. People walk around thinking they know who they are. They wake up, brush their teeth, go about their little routines, convinced they've got themselves all figured out. But put a little pressure on them, just a little shake, a little test, a little moment where things don't go their way, and suddenly that mask of self-assurance starts to crack. Who they thought they were, gone. What they thought they could handle, shattered. And what's left? Now that's the fun part. See, when everything's easy, anyone can pretend to be strong. Anyone can wear the mask of patience, of kindness, of wisdom. But the second things go wrong, the second life starts pressing in, squeezing them just a little too hard, that's when the truth comes out. That's when the nice ones snap. That's when the patient ones start screaming. That's when the wise ones start making foolish choices. It's almost funny. They spend their whole lives crafting this identity, this idea of who they are, and the moment things get difficult, all that effort goes right out the window. And oh, how they panic. How they scramble to get back to who they thought they were. How they try to glue the mask back together, to convince themselves they're still in control. They tell themselves it's just a phase, just a rough patch, just a moment of weakness. But deep down, oh, deep down, they know the truth. They've seen what's underneath, and it terrifies them. They've seen the part of themselves they like to pretend doesn't exist, the part that doubts, that fears, that breaks under pressure, and they'd do anything to bury it again. But here's the thing, they're being tested for a reason, stripped down for a purpose, because sometimes you have to lose who you thought you were to become who you were actually meant to be. And that's the part nobody likes, the breaking, the undoing, the stripping away of everything they thought made them strong. People love the idea of transformation, of growth, of becoming something greater. But what they don't love is the process, the tearing down, the uncomfortable moments where they have to face parts of themselves they'd rather ignore. They don't realize that every test, every challenge, every moment of pressure is just shaping them into something more. They think they're losing themselves when really they're just shedding the parts that were never meant to last. But instead of embracing the process, they fight it. They resist. They scream about how unfair it is, how hard it is, how they just want things to go back to the way they were. They don't see that the way things were wasn't enough, that who they were wasn't enough, not for what's coming next, not for where they're meant to go. And that's the irony. The same people who beg for growth, for purpose, for something more, are the same ones who fight it the hardest when it actually starts happening. They want strength but don't want to be tested. They want wisdom but don't want to face hard lessons. They want to be unshakable but don't want to be shaken. They want the reward without the process, the power without the pain, the purpose without the preparation. But that's not how it works. You don't get to be more without first becoming less. You don't get to rise without first being torn apart. And if you think you can fight it, resist it, push against it, and still come out on the other side as the person you were meant to be, well, let's just say you've got another thing coming. And whether you like it or not, you're going to have to face what's underneath that mask. People think they're in control. They wake up, follow their little schedules, make their little plans, thinking they've got everything figured out. They hold on so tightly to their routines, their habits, their ideas of how life should go. Oh, they believe they're the ones pulling the strings. But what happens when things don't go according to plan? When something unexpected sneaks in and flips the whole script? That's when the real fun begins. See, people love certainty. They cling to it like a child clutching their favorite toy. It makes them feel safe, secure, like they know what's coming next. They map out their lives step by step, convinced that if they just work hard enough, if they just do everything right, then everything will fall under control exactly the way they imagined. But control? Oh, that's the biggest illusion of them all. Because no matter how tightly they grip the wheel, no matter how carefully they plan, there will always be something bigger, something unseen, something just waiting for the perfect moment to come along and knock the whole thing off course. And when it does, when their carefully built world starts crumbling around them, that's when you see what they're really made of. That's when you see just how fragile their sense of control really was. Some people break. They panic, they scream, they cry about how unfair it all is. They try desperately to hold on, to put the pieces back together exactly the way they were before. They can't accept that maybe, just maybe, things fell apart for a reason. That maybe they were never supposed to stay the same. They fight against it, exhausting themselves trying to regain control, never realizing that the more they struggle, the worse it gets. And then there are the ones who let go, the ones who understand that sometimes the best thing you can do is stop fighting, stop resisting, stop trying to force things to go back to the way they were. These people, they know something the others don't. They know that sometimes losing control is the best thing that can happen. Because only when you let go of what you thought should be do you make room for what's actually meant to be. But oh, letting go, it's terrifying, isn't it? Because people think if they're not in control, then everything will fall apart. They think if they don't have a grip on every little detail, then things will spiral into chaos. They don't realize that sometimes chaos is exactly what they need. That sometimes things have to fall apart so something better can be built in its place. And isn't that the funny part? They spend their whole lives trying to avoid uncertainty, trying to protect themselves from the unknown. But the unknown is where all the magic happens. It's where they grow, where they change, where they become something more than they ever thought possible. But most people, they're too afraid. Too busy trying to hold on to something that was never meant to last. Too blind to see that the very thing they fear, the loss of control, is the one thing that could set them free. Because real power is not in holding on. It's in knowing when to let go. It's in trusting that even when things don't go according to plan, maybe, just maybe, they're still going exactly the way they're supposed to. But people don't like that idea, do they? They want guarantees, they want promises, they want to know how the story ends before they've even lived it. But that's not how this works. Life doesn't give out roadmaps. It doesn't hand you a script and tell you exactly what's coming next. No, it throws you into the unknown, tests you, breaks you, and forces you to either adapt or collapse. And the ones who make it, the ones who truly learn how to live, they're the ones who stop trying to control everything and start embracing the chaos. The ones who understand that sometimes the best thing you can do is let go and see where the madness takes you. People love to talk about fairness, about how things should be. They walk around with their heads high, convinced that life follows some neat little rule book, that if they do everything right, everything will go right. Oh, but life doesn't care about their rules. Life doesn't play fair. It doesn't hand out rewards just because you worked hard, just because you were patient, just because you followed the steps. No, no, no. Life plays its own game, and the rules, well, they change whenever it feels like it. See, people spend so much time waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for a sign, for a break, for something, anything that tells them they're on the right path. They sit there day after day, convincing themselves that if they just wait long enough, everything will fall into place exactly the way they want it to. But waiting? Oh, that's the biggest joke of all. Because while they sit around hoping for a miracle, life is moving, time is passing, and the only thing they're really doing is letting it all slip right through their fingers. And when things don't go their way, what do? Oh, they complain. They cry about how unfair it all is. They look around and see others getting what they wanted, others finding success, finding happiness, finding purpose, and they grit their teeth and ask, why not me? They convince themselves they've been forgotten, that they've been left behind, that no one is listening. But maybe, just maybe, they're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not about why things aren't happening for them. Maybe it's about why they're still waiting instead of doing something about it. Because here's the truth. The cold, hard truth that no one likes to admit. No one is coming to save them. No one is going to hold their hand and guide them to where they need to be. No one is going to make the decision for them. They keep waiting for a sign, waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell them it's their time, but the only person who can do that is them. The only thing standing between them and what they want, it's not luck, it's not fate, it's not some grand cosmic force deciding their worth. No, it's them, just them. But oh, people don't like that answer, because if it's up to them, then that means they have to take responsibility. That means they have to face the truth. That maybe, just maybe, the reason nothing is happening is because they're too afraid to make a move. too scared to take a risk, too comfortable in their own misery because at least that's familiar, at least that doesn't require change. And change? Oh, that's the scariest thing of all, isn't it? Because change means stepping into the unknown. It means letting go of the excuses, the doubts, the idea that everything has to be perfect before they begin. It means facing the reality that the only way forward is to take a step, even if they don't know where it will lead. But most people, they'd rather stay where they are. They'd rather keep waiting, keep blaming, keep pretending that they have no control, because as long as they believe that, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to try. And if they don't try, they don't have to fail. That's where the real lessons are. That's where the real growth happens. Not in the waiting, not in the wishing, but in the falling and the getting back up, in the trying and the learning and the adapting. In the moments where they realize that maybe the path they thought was right wasn't right at all. But that doesn't mean they stop walking. It just means they find a new way forward. But people don't want a new way. They want their way. They want things to go exactly as they imagined, in the exact timing they expected. And when it doesn't, oh, they crumble, they give up. They convince themselves that if it didn't happen the way they planned, then it wasn't meant to happen at all. But that's not how life works. Life isn't a straight line. It's not a neat little staircase where every step leads perfectly to the next. No, life is messy, it's unpredictable, it throws detours and roadblocks and storms that wipe everything away in an instant. And that's the fun part. Because the ones who make it through, the ones who find their way even when everything falls apart, they aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who learned how to keep moving, no matter what. They're the ones who stopped waiting for a sign and decided to create their own. They're the ones who understood that life doesn't owe them anything, that nothing is guaranteed, but that doesn't mean they stop fighting for it, because in the end, the only difference between the people who succeed and the people who don't, it's not talent, it's not luck, it's not some divine favor choosing one over the other. It's simply this: one of them kept going and the other one didn't.